need to expand the number 3, the uses to be its absolute worst case, senior center, conditional use permits, whatever use there could possibly come up with that people have even thought about to make it the most stringent evaluation.
I think people have to stop focusing so on the needs assessment and recognize it for exactly what it is. It was one aspect of a very lengthy process. And even then, it was one very small part of 5 or 6 elements of the beginning of a process, which you have to take in the context of 5 or 6 elements, which no one seems to be doing. And when you talk about filtering the information we get from the needs assessment report, I hope you don't filter the information at all. Don't buy it. Why? We're not asking you to buy the needs assessment report. You don't have to believe any of it, because the process is ongoing. The process is such that we are now asking for detailed community input. We are in the process of an EIR. We're in the process of amending a master plan. We're in the process of disseminating information and going door to door to get information from people. We're in the process of holding scoping meetings about the size of the building. We're not forcing people to read and accept a needs assessment report. We've never said that. The needs assessment report is just a beginning. As far as we're concerned, throw it away. We're now asking what the public wants. We don't ask for opinions as to how many people are going to be attending a site and saying that that's the be-all and end-all. Yes, we'll ask for one person's opinion, but that's not something we're going to say it has to be. It's not what I want, it's not what you want, it's not what Elizabeth Lewis believes. We're going to listen to everybody in the town's comments, and they're going to be incorporated in what the final outcome is likely to be. So, as far as I'm concerned, you can keep focusing on the needs assessment, but you're not doing justice to the people of the town when you do that. And all well and good to say you've read it. How many people have read War and Peace and Anna Karenina, and just what does that mean at this point in time? Really, nothing, as far as the process is concerned. We have a lot more to go and a lot more important aspects of this process that's before us. So let's focus on what's really important here, people, huh? And let's get on with it and stop bashing a library and try and do what's right by this town.
Okay, so for myself, my closing arguments.
And excuse me, Elizabeth, I don't think it's funny.
For my,
I'm sorry, I did.
We'll stay on track. My closing arguments here are, I don't think that we should be discussing and continue to discuss needs for a survey. I know that came up very briefly. Whether the library should be in the park, etc. I think that the item that is at hand here is the EIR is moving forward, and they need some clarification. So what is the size that we're willing to allow? And I think that we've said before, and we're just hopefully, I think that this resolution is to confirm that it's 10,000 square feet. We want to minimize any impact, but it would be the total footprint, and the footprint would be including any atriums or gardens that they're going to have that will be enclosed, that the general public, not in the library, would not be. Yes.
Can we use the word wall rather than enclosed?
Okay, I'm sorry. Wall.
Thank you.
I apologize. And then also, I'm not sure if we need to amend the park master plan to do this, because they're looking at several locations. Is that not correct?
Can we say the landscaping plan, master landscaping plan?
It would be at the stage when if you choose to move forward with that site, then the park
That would be
master
after
plan
the
would be-
EIR was complete,
Correct.
correct?
Correct. It
So,
can be done
Yes,
concurrently
but you
as
still
well.
have to include that for
all
now.
right, okay.
And it's referred to as the park master plan, not landscaping plan.
I think that that's the title of it, yeah. But it does a lot of the landscaping.
It does.
I've also read that too.
Yeah.
As long as And I do remember taking the survey. That's one survey I do remember taking, Charles. Okay.
I didn't.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so I think that's my comment, is I try to get us focused on what we're trying to do here, not on the decisions that have already been made, because we're now in the process of getting the EIR up to go. So what I'd like to do is have a motion.
So moved.
I'd like to make an amendment to it.
You'll entertain it.
Okay. The amendment that would say that, because you're moving for the number 1, 2, and 3,
The amendment
right?
has to be taken first.
Before there's a second on my motion?
Technically, there should be a second, I thought there was. But
No. Is there a second on my motion to move to accept these
I'll second it if you need to.
with the enclosed
The wall
language?
patio areas. And is there any change to item 3 as far as description of uses?
That's what I was wanting to make sure that got in there.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
No, well, go,
So
yeah.
the motion was, that the
To
staff
accept
has,
all of this except with the enclosed language added to number 1.
The wall
The
patio.
wall, excuse me.
Yes, thank you.
And I want to make sure, if you're going to use this diagram with the dashed lines around it, the dashed lines for the available site, that's indicating a larger footprint
Correct,
than the 10,000 square feet.
yes.
So we need to reduce it to 10,000 square feet.
Well, we don't know the shape of the building at this point.
So it could
So that's the
sprawl
available
over.
space.
And why is that? Because that's what I don't understand. Who determined that as the available space?
Well, that's what we're asking you to help determine, is
Yeah,
what would be the available space.
I would really like to see that the edge of the building, the corner of the building that is closest to the water tower, that whole area just be locked off, that rectangle. It looks like there's a car parked
Yeah,
there.
that's asphalt paved right
Okay,
behind the
so
building.
to take that part away, so if you just draw a line, at least that would take that part, and it would give you some breathing room to the water tower. Do you see what I'm saying? Because if this key, 10,000 square feet, would fit there, you could lock that off. It just concerns me that you've got,
Ultimately, the
The site
design is
is-
going to come to the council for approval.
yeah, but
So let's,
all I'm saying, we're looking at this, we're approving this,
I mean,
and
we
then
can
it's gonna
start
come
cutting
back
off
with
that
the
other
same-
corner near the trees, which I wouldn't want either, so why
Yeah,
don't we
but
just leave
there's-
it until it's
there's
10,000
parking.
square feet and we wait until it comes to the council, if the day ever comes, for approval.
What's your other amendment?
My other amendment is in item number 3, that we expand the uses to include all and any other potential conditional use permits that council may,
You can't do that, there's no limit to that, they wouldn't have any idea of what to do.
yeah, Mr. Mayor, remember, this is only, we're asking for clarification so the environmental consultants will have kind of a finite vision of what to look at. And the term, quote, public uses basically opens it to anything that the city might not use in the way of city uses, town uses. And what we're asking for is not such specificity that, we have to sit here and design the project first, because that would defeat the whole purpose. What we need to know is, are these kind of representative uses that then the EIR consultant can use for traffic purposes? You could make it more general and say office use, or you could say commercial use, or you could say any of those
we have
things.
no commercial use.
Yeah, exactly, but I'm just saying
How
that
about a
those,
senior center?
senior center, you could make
How
those
about a
kinds of,
daycare center?
those could be either public uses or private uses.
What does
Again,
it say?
Private school, yes.
Private school?
so you could make those, you could make it
Okay,
as
so
broad
I'm
as
just-
you want.
that's what I'm trying to do, council.
Any
Well-
uses that are listed in the zoning code as permitted or conditional, yes.
No,
Country club.
because that's for the EIR, that's
Eventually,
for the
it
EIR.
will come up.
Yeah, we have-
No, but it's important from a consultant standpoint, that in terms of car count, if you limit it to the town staff we now have, there's no additional car count. But if you say all public uses, they have to take into account additional car count.
So what is council's recommendation on the wording?
I think staff came to you with a kind of a breadth of potential uses. And the concept was, these are kind of representative of things that could feasibly be put there, as opposed to, you know, and Councilmember Lewis has some suggestions for other things that certainly could be put in there. And there's no limit to what you might want to think about putting in there. It's totally up to you, but at this point, Councilmember Lewis has a motion that I think could be restated to help staff just in entirety, because there's been some kind of discussion about, well, we could do this or we could do that. We're looking for clarification as to exactly what the limits would be, not exactly where the building goes. You know, for instance, if you want to start lopping off things within that larger area, that's fine. But that large area is just shown as within that area. You can't exceed 10,000 square feet. And you have to avoid trying to build on green areas. And the reason it's bigger is so that it gives some fenestration to the building. So it's just not a rectangle. It's not like Monopoly where you just put a thing down there. It has to be, you know, have shape and an approach to it. You can do anything you want in terms of limiting or adding uses. The staff is fine with that. We just need clarification.
I appreciate that. My concern is the closeness to the water tower of that far corner there.
So,
And if we lopped off that rectangle where the asphalt is, where the tower is against the building, you still have plenty of room. And then we're kind of
When the design comes out,
how about if we do
we
this?
can move it away from the water.
How about, Bill, if we can say, you know, the space shown, but minimizing to the maximum extent possible in the final design, trees and keeping as much distance as possible from the water tower.
Right.
Are we allowed to say that, or is that?
You can
Getting-
say that once Councilmember Lewis gets done with her motion to amend, which once it's final, then we'll find out if there's a second, and that has to be voted on before we do anything else, but your comment is absolutely, certainly okay.
So my motion to amend was to lop off a portion of that on the diagram. And then in number 3, to expand the potential uses to include private schools, senior centers. And that will be it.
A second motion.
This commercial, senior centers and private
Around the
schools.
word.
Are those commercial?
The answer is not necessarily, and obviously they would have to comply with the zoning ordinances that we have. The senior center, there's lots of them that are owned by towns and cities all over California. Very common, actually. City of Folsom has one, City of Monterey has one, actually, City of Monterey has 3. So there certainly would be a permitted use at this site.
So can we amend the amendment that's on the table, or do we have to vote on it and then potentially?
Wow, now we're getting amendments on amendments.
I'm asking your opinion.
Yeah, I think you can amend it because, you know, that is just a substitute, essentially a substitute motion, so you could.
Okay, I'd like to amend the vice mayor's item to just identify that to the maximum extent possible, we would have no structure. The structure would be as far away as possible from the water tower, as opposed to lopping off a whole section of the.
Okay, I'll agree with that.
Okay.
I'll second your.
Well, then you don't have to do that if you agree, because then you can,
Okay.
so the amendment would now say avoid the water tower to the maximum extent possible, and then add uses, schools and senior centers. Is
Yes,
that correct?
yes.
And Councilmember Carlson seconded that.
Well, what does that mean? That means, does that mean that they have to stick the building all the way in this corner? What is maximum extent possible?
It's weasel words that says that they're gonna do their best when they design it.
But you may be forcing them to design it all the way over in this corner to the maximum extent possible. Is that what you really want?
It really won't make any difference at this stage for EIR review, to be honest with you, because the EIR consultant's looking at the envelope only, and ultimately the design, it'll move around, but they're not looking at design right now, they're looking at uses
Okay.
and traffic. And they would be looking at whether or
I
not
just
there's,
don't want you to commit to something that then ends up getting us in a worse position than we really want.
the only thing that the EIR consultant cares about is, are you imposing the building envelope on green space, existing green space, and will there be any other new uses? And I think staff recommended this envelope because that's pretty much gives some flexibility in the EIR's review of an area.
But we're not bound by it, we're just giving them some direction to move forward.
Fine.
Yeah, after the EIR comes back, you can deviate from it if you need to.
All right, so we have a valid motion on the floor, shall we vote? All in favor, please? Motion passes.
All you did was vote on the amendment. Now you have to vote on the amended motion.
Now I have a motion then, on the amended motion.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Item 21, which is consideration and actions on disbandment of the Environmental Programs Committee. Mr. Danielson?
From time to time, I'm required to come to you for policy direction that's outside the scope of my purview. So it's incumbent on me to let you know where I think that there are issues that I think you need to deal with. My comments are not meant to be in pejorative or to degrade any work that's been done up to this point by a standing committee of yours. So I hope we can depersonalize that part of it, at least in terms of my report. You provide me direction, I tell staff what to do, we live with it. I have a concern that due to some lack of definitive direction, and the former mayor and I have spent many, many hours of robust discussion about who should be doing what and what, and actually I've talked to each of you individually. I have concerns about committees from all different angles. In terms of the Environmental Program Committee, the concern has been recently raised, and I think that it's well put in this report, has to do whether or not the EPC represents you and your opinions and your stated direction. There's an independent website which, in my opinion, is primarily subjective opinion, that I've received a significant number of inquiries wanting to know whether or not this was council policy and direction, which I've stated is not, because you took no formal action on that, whether it's water quality or other issues, culminating in a request for input on a survey type matter with an item that's before the council. Like I say, I don't say anything here to be in the pejorative towards anything that the EPC has done in the past with the good work that they've done. However, let me just read this very quickly. Although the EPC has been involved in a variety of excellent programs, the town council has never really defined what those duties are and how allocated funds should be spent, which is a whole separate issue because council allocated a significant amount of money. And it's been hard to track where those funds were and was that the intention of council's proceedings. As a consequence, some residents have questioned whether the EPC represents the views and opinions of the town council or is an independent body creating opinion pieces on local governance issues. Presented before you tonight, including the option to do nothing, is take no action and allow EPC to operate under its current format, which is status quo, disband the EPC and leave it lie, or disband the EPC and reform it at some future date until a clear charter that provides direction, goals, scope of work, and relationship to the town council may be established. Once again, I have no opinion beyond, I think, what's factually been presented. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll have council discussion.
I'd like to hear the two council members who belong, the members of the committee, have comments.
Okay, Elizabeth, you're the chairman. Why don't we start with you?
Well, it's puzzling. It's really, really puzzling to me that this should come before us at this particular time. And that this was brought to the attention, actually, it wasn't brought to the attention of the city manager. It was brought out in public as an attack last council meeting by Councilmember McKeithen, who is also a committee member on the Environmental Programs Committee and has been for a year. I want to make absolutely clear that, and I want to make sure that the record reflects that I am opposed to this item even being on the agenda. And I'm opposed and I'm offended by the language of the resolution. The Environmental Programs Committee has done absolutely nothing wrong except to question on its own website environmental benefits for Atherton of moving the library to the park. Once that came up, that was when the attacks began by my fellow council member. False allegations, raising specters of illegal doings by a volunteer committee, a volunteer resident, is a technique that's often used by my fellow council member without thoroughly investigating the situation or taking the time to find out the facts. Councilmember McKeithen has been a member of the Environmental Programs Committee for 11 months. If she had had concerns about the website, which has been up for over 5 years, 4 or 5 years, why were those concerns not raised before? The concerns, the allegations, the threats for grand jury investigation were made only after the committee member started posting concerns about environmental impacts of the library going to the park. Now, I've been involved with the Environmental Programs Committee before I was council member. There was the first Earth Day that was held at the park, and it was truly a remarkable event because Valerie Gardner, who's on our committee, who's really the driving force behind the committee, gathered around vendors and high school students to participate in environmental projects. Prizes were given out. There was awareness being raised in the community about the environmental impacts of garbage, recycling, solar panels, and things like that. So I have, and then every year there's been more and more and more. I just am puzzled and stunned that at this point in time, the attack has come. At no time in the last 11 months did my fellow council member raise any questions about the programs or the website. But now she has. And I think that putting this item on the agenda by the city manager at this time without further investigating, or the due process, discussions with the committee members is inappropriate and was based on intimidation. So I just am shocked, saddened that this has come to this, that we are so eager to tear down things that are good and valuable in the attack mode in our town. So that's my initial comments. I'll hand it over to the other committee member to make her statements.
I'll start by saying I think you just violated our rules of conduct, just about every which way you could, and I would recommend you go back and read them. I have absolutely no personal vendetta in this, and to the extent it, yes, concerns the library, it's only because there was an article on the website that someone pointed me to, and that's how I became aware of the fact that the website was basically being used as a personal political pulpit. That is the be-all and end-all of my reason for becoming aware of this, and not earlier. I hadn't looked at the website. There's no other reason for it. I am not the resident who instigated this being on the agenda. And as far as the reason for it, it is nothing personal. I'm a lawyer and I stand by the law. And it is clear in the resolution that says, no committee or member shall represent itself or themselves as speaking on behalf of the town without prior approval of the council. There are a number of opinions, frankly, just about every article there. And you know who pointed it out to me? My husband. I didn't go to the website, my husband did, and pointed out to me that every single article there had a personal viewpoint. And it was the personal viewpoint of one or two people on the committee. And for as long as I've been on the committee, which by the way, it took me months to get notice of, even though I kept asking for notice of the meetings, I never got it. But when I finally did, I never heard any of those issues being raised at the committee level. None of them have ever been raised or voted upon. So it surprised me somewhat to see all those articles with positions having been taken on behalf of the town. I do remember that once it came before this council, a position that we were being asked to take about car emissions. It was a very volatile position paper, and while I agreed with the theory and the thinking of it, it had to be toned down considerably, and the council voted on it, and I worked with it, made some adjustments to it, and we signed it. But none of these positions had that airing before this council, or even the committee members. That is a clear violation of committee doctrine for any committee. It also says that this are personal positions and statements on town projects and environmental concerns. So it went beyond not just general environmental concerns, but ongoing town projects. And that, once again, is breaking the rules. When people give money to the environmental committee, I can't help but wonder, do they know what their money's being used for? This is was on a town website. These are town funds. So yes, while I didn't ask for this, I do question whether or not this committee has far exceeded its charter, and thus has to be reconsidered. I think an environmental committee is a very important thing. I think I could put to the test every single one of us up here and talk about how we feel and what we do for the environment, and I would bet I would come out with glowing colors. I do care about the environment, and I want to see an environmental committee. that this committee has trouble with its membership, has trouble gaining membership. This committee has become a private enterprise, and I don't believe, no matter what good it has done in the past, can continue based upon what it has done in the present.
Could I ask the committee members how many meetings they attended and why these issues weren't raised at the committee meeting and discussed there?
I attended probably about 3 meetings, and I have no reason, I have no knowledge of why none of these issues were ever raised at any of the meetings.
Well, you know, I'm trying to, I guess, figure out how did we get here? We have council representation on the committee, and it seems like these issues are suddenly surfacing here as to why committee members wouldn't be thinking about, okay, what are the goals and priorities of the environmental committee, and how do these relate to the goals and priorities of the council, and you know, raising those issues and making sure that what you have on the website, you know, does reflect what council has approved and so forth. And I'm just mystified why that wasn't done.
I can tell you, Jerry, I don't receive a lot of the information. I would go to those meetings and find out that other members had information that I wasn't given. I don't know. But routinely, I would go to a meeting and find that there was budget information, handout information about programs that were being held or upcoming programs that were going to be held that other members had that I was not given.
I don't want to go back and forth about this, and I don't think this works, but anyway. The thing is, the meetings that were held mostly in 2011 were focusing on the Atherton 2020 launch that we put out with Elwin Sherwin. He spoke with Steve Schmidt over at the pavilion where he talked about his book, and so they were planning on that in the Atherton 2020 launch, and the association with Actera. The thing is that as a direct consequence of taking down the environmental website, we're going to have to refund about $9,600 in sponsorship funds that had been given to us because they were on that. Disbanding the EPC will mean the abandonment of current federal program funding, which we received a grant of about $165,000 for Atherton residents. The High Energy Efficiency Program, the Home Efficiency Program, which we are partnering with Actera and Portola Valley and Woodside and other cities in leveraging those federal grants. And it's all the smart meter stuff. And so those were the things we were talking about. In the middle of the year, we lost our staff member due to the restructuring. So we didn't have the staff member who actually did most of the minutes and did all of the assignments. And we did speak and talk about all these things we talked about. The chicken ordinance, we talked about other environmental issues, the ecology and stuff. So to me, the website was put together before I was involved in it, and it was just something that I just never thought was offensive.
Was the website the real issue here, or is there something else more fundamental that I'm not seeing?
No, I think it's the website. The website have you seen the website?
I haven't looked at it for a while.
It had multiple positions taken on a variety of issues on behalf of the town. And it just stated them as town positions, as if the council had approved it.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Jump in.
Well, I have to say that ever since I've been on the council, I have felt the Environmental Programs Committee was totally out of control. I felt they did whatever they wanted. They spent money that was not approved. I'll give you one example. One of the town employees, our town manager, she came and she said, I need overtime to work on the Environmental Programs Committee. He said, I'm sorry, but because of the financial situation, no overtime is approved, and based on what I had, this particular individual went to Environmental Programs Committee and said, oh, don't worry, we'll pay you. Well, that's totally inappropriate. I think some of the things that we've done have been inappropriate. I met with Riley Gardner, probably a few months ago, where she wanted me to support giving them more money. And she told me exactly what they were supposed to be doing, which was really helping the town become more energy efficient with solar and everything else, which I'm totally in support of. The next thing I hear is we have open houses to show people how to build energy efficient homes. We're hiring security guards. We're hiring caterers for the people there, something I never heard of in that discussion. That website that came up purported to be an Atherton website, had the Atherton logo there. I think it was illegal apart from everything else. And it certainly did not represent the views of the town as I thought the views of the town. But even if it did, these things have to come to the council for approval. And it's been one thing after the other, as far as I'm concerned, with the Environmental Programs Committee, just totally out of control. I would certainly like to see it disbanded and reform it in some future day, but with a clear charter where its responsibilities were clearly defined and where they knew exactly what the rules were. This committee, as long as I've been here, has been running kind of independently. They almost didn't care what anybody else thought. They've taken funds from outside the town,